Happiness can also be a skill, right? You can promote happiness in your life by thinking about. I don't think enough of us think about actively pursuing and actively creating conditions for it, and actively um, uh, changing our mindsets to encourage it, right? We just kind of think it happens or you have to make it happen, but it's like, ooh, what's stopping? What's in the way of your happiness?
Welcome to another exciting episode of Pushing Your Peers podcast. I'm your host, Leo Lightbourne, and today I had the pleasure of speaking with the incredible Lizzie Foster, a wonderful and inspiring yoga instructor, counselor, and life coach. Lizzie brings real insight, meaningful stories, and explores new areas of individual and relationship growth with her clients. On this episode, we dive into the P's of perception and playfulness, discussing their crucial roles in our mental well-being and happiness. Lizzie's energy is infectious, and her powerful stories and moving insights make this an unforgettable conversation. Join us for an episode filled with inspiration, wisdom, and a whole lot of aura. Let's get ready to push some peers. I just want to thank you for agreeing to do this interview on the Pushing Your Peers podcast. And today we're going to be talking about perspective. And I want to ask you, what role does perspective play in a person's healing journey?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I think it plays a major role. I think so many of us, depending on the lens through which we're looking at things, our perspective, we'll interpret events, we'll interpret ourselves, we'll interpret other people in a certain way, which sometimes is not helpful, right? So I think understanding, the thoughts and the frameworks and the way you're looking at a situation, and just seeing it is one of many, right, perspectives. And so what does it mean to open your perspective to other people's, other ways of looking at a situation? What does it mean to put yourself in the other person's shoes and their perspective? So often, a lot of what I do in my work is helping people see how their perspective is maybe too narrow, or maybe isn't the full picture, or is maybe skewing their interpretation, and also making them aware of how their perspective is influenced by things in their life, influenced by stress, or influenced by their environment, or influenced by just so many factors. So I think perspective is huge when it comes to the healing journey.
I mean, and I'll admit, I have a fixation on happiness. I don't know what this fixation came from. I'm just in love with the emotion. But what's a healthy way to view happiness? Is it something that is constant? Like we should always have it? Like what's a healthy way to view happiness?
Oh, this is a really good question. In this point, I won't actually talk as an expert. I'll just talk as myself. One of the things that I found really fascinating in my path, I started with mindfulness as one of the trainings, and one of the things I loved about the mindfulness perspective is that it really sees everything as a whole. Like happiness is one spectrum of emotions that you are looking to experience, but it also holds a totality. So there might be sadness, there might be anger, there might be all these different spectrum of emotions. Just embracing them all, and noticing your relationship to them, and noticing how to manage uncomfortable feelings or challenging emotions. I think I really love the idea of like joy and inner contentment, and because happiness, and this is again, might change, as an emotion, but I think there's some deep-seated spaces that, regardless of what's happening on the surface, you can tap into. But I think happiness can also be a skill, right? You can promote happiness in your life by thinking about. I don't think enough of us think about actively pursuing and actively creating conditions for it, and actively um, uh, changing our mindsets to encourage it, right? We just kind of think it happens or you have to make it happen, but it's like, ooh, what's stopping? What's in the way of your happiness? And I think that's a big question, especially with the healing, because what's in the way of your happiness? And sometimes dealing with the anger, or dealing with the fear, or dealing with the sadness, is the way through to finding those places of joy, contentment, happiness. So yeah, that's a great question. Not sure if I answered
No.
it, but
And sometimes we are fixated on the anger component. Oh, I can't be happy. This is not going. But when you have those type of clients, as a counselor, where do you start with their journey back to becoming or what I would say experiencing more states of happiness? Where do you start with a client who doesn't hold a view that happiness is not just for me? Like, I've had a pretty miserable life. Life has dealt me the worst hand. How do you where do you start with those type of clients?
oh, that's a oh, great questions, Leo. When I think about that, I think I start with where they are. Um, and start with, you know, what are they feeling, or what are they not wanting to feel? The despair of not feeling happy, the maybe the bitterness or the resentment, or the sadness that might be underneath that. Like that feels like that's why they can't be happy, or the stories, the limiting beliefs, like everybody else can be happy, they deserve it, or they're lucky. What are all the thoughts, or you know I've been dealt a bad hand, or there's so many beliefs, and often they're justified. Life has been hard for many people, so really getting in touch with where they are, where they've been, what their story is. um, and then taking the time to really address those. That's where the trauma work comes in. That's where you know, the work, because, you know, trying to tell someone, yeah, just be happy when in that state, it's actually unfair. It's diminishing where they are and diminishing the pain, and, denying it. And I think that's not necessarily healthy. So it's like, how do we acknowledge what's here? How do we address what's here? And usually, and I love this about it, sometimes just relating to something, sometimes just taking space and time for someone, that's often huge in terms of like letting go of the anger, letting go of whatever is in the way of that. But I just say that, that's normal and natural. We all have these blockers. And um, I think it's important to be very empathetic towards those perspectives, and to understand they're there for a reason. It's not like someone wants to be miserable, or somebody wants to be bitter, or somebody feels, they're there, so they're justified. So yeah, I think, hope that answers your question, but yes.
Yeah, Lizzie. And I want to now segue into your profession. You do yoga, you're a counselor, you do coaching, and I'm pretty sure there's a philosophy that you live by, or perspective that you live by. You know, share with us what that is. How do you see the world that keeps you going in all of these fields?
I love that question, because I think my perspective has changed. I think there is something, and I'm going to be deeply personal here, but I have a deep spiritual faith that I think, I've seen so much amazing transformation in my own life, and I see it in others. And so I don't feel like it's just for me to be doing this work. It's not, it's something bigger. And like people like yourself on the show, and my colleagues that I'm working with, I like to see things as this is, the evolution of us as humans. And I love what you said about Turks and Caicos Islanders. Like, this is how we evolve as people. This is how we evolve as a nation. And it's important that we spread these mindsets and these tools and these skills and these spaces and these opportunities to relate to one another. Um, because ultimately, I think that's what so many of us are searching for. It's not the outside stuff, it's the inner stuff. And I think that's when you said happiness and joy. I mean, when you've seen them, people who you just seem joyful, even though the world's falling apart, they just seem okay, and you're like, how are they doing that? And I think, and that is really, it's that perspective. It's having, I like to say, what's your bigger why? What is your bigger why? The question you asked me. And I think when you discover what your bigger why is, and that can change, and it might be different in different contexts, it it helps you move through the challenges. It helps keep you motivated. It helps you push past discomfort and grow, because growth takes a little bit of moving through discomfort. So it's like um, that can really help pull you forward. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I think really that healing um, of ourselves, and I think we all do it in different ways. So I've just chosen these three things, mindfulness. But I think ultimately we're all on this planet to like have wonderful relationships and be happy and share joy. So I'm grateful that I found this toolkit to help me do that.
Indeed. Now, Lizzie, there's this. Now you've been on a journey yourself, and then you're now meeting the young Lizzie Foster. Fresh out of high school, living in the real world. What's the best advice you could give her right now about perception, entering into the real world for the first time?
I'm going to talk to the younger Lizzie. I think, and this may not apply to every young woman, but I think for me, I was very hard on myself. One of the first tools that I kind of really grasped upon was like self-compassion and compassion and empathy for myself and validating myself. And I think a lot of people's pain stems from how critical we are of ourselves. And I think that then externally looks like anger or avoidance or withdrawal, or it looks like a variety of things, but inside it's often a lot of self-hate or dissatisfaction with yourself or dissatisfaction with life. And so that kind of like embracing of oneself, embracing of one's life, um, that was it. Yeah, that's what I would say to her. Give her a big hug and just create a space for her to just be herself and talk and, talk about her fears, talk about what she wants. I think that would be it.
And you touched on something, self-hate, and that's a common thing in Afro communities, especially the self-hate. Where do we start with that healing when it comes to self-hate amongst our brothers and sisters?
Wow. I think, I mean, even just this conversation now, I think just acknowledging it, that it's real, just saying it out loud, and having spaces to say it out loud and to talk about what it feels like, how you've experienced it, um, and, spaces in community where it's safe, whether it's a therapist or a family member or friend, and then also within ourselves. I think I do believe in the power of self-reflection, um, uh, and attending, because those places of self-hate, they live in our bodies. It's not just a mental thing. It's a
Hmm.
bracing of the body. It's a contort. You can be felt in different places. Sometimes it's in the stomach. Sometimes it's in the heart. It can be a way of looking at the world where you just feel like everyone's going to attack you. And that's kind of an also outward expression of that self-hate. You don't feel safe. You don't feel safe in your skin. You don't feel valued in your own skin, and the world. And I think that is the sadness. Like that. This can affect how you see the world, interpret situations. So yeah, having spaces to go within and to speak, um, and to move through that. Some of the work I do, we do some beautiful exercises, somatic exercises, to really explore where that lives. And it's surprising how the body will speak. You'll actually have parts of you that will say, what they experienced at a certain age, or, and it can be quite an emotional release, to have those spaces. So I think really addressing it and not bypassing it, not just thinking, I love myself. Like, no, no, no. Okay, yeah, we love ourselves. But this part, there's no bypassing it. I think taking the time to truly address it, that's what opens up things.
Is your classes available to the community? How do we go about booking these type of classes? Because I would love to attend something, something like this. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, but how does the public go about booking, even if it's not a class but a session with you, Lizzie?
Well, I'm in, as I said, many hats, two different spaces. I'm at the Elephant Rooms, And their website is theelephantrooms.com, and that's if you want coaching or counseling work. And then in terms of my yoga side, you can also find me through them, but I have my own website. It's called wayfareryogatc.com. So, and that's where I do a lot more of the yoga side, private yoga, mindfulness, meditation. But either way, I love combining the two worlds. So, if there's any opportunity to do a bit of yoga, a bit of mindfulness, go deep. I think it's a whole package, So.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you guys go to our website. I will drop the links in the bio and also during the episode. So make sure you guys go there to book her. As you can see, she's absolutely amazing. Love the energy. Now,
Aw.
second half, the second half of the show. Pushing your peers. You wouldn't be a guest on Pushing Your Peers podcast if you didn't get to push your peers. So, Lizzie, share with the audience a word that begins with the letter P or any words that begin with the letter P that has helped you along your journey of growth and development.
I'm gonna use the word playfulness. It is so, and this is coming from I'm a very serious person, or at least I used to be. Maybe I don't know, but I think finding my playfulness and um, has been paramount. I used to get told, "Don't take yourself so seriously," and that was so painful to hear because there was a part of me that just felt life was hard and so serious. So something about reclaiming my joy, reclaiming my ability to play, to just not care, to be nice to myself, to be like, to not be so hard on myself, to just have fun. That has been huge for me.
Wow.
And I encourage others to just be playful.
I wasn't expecting that, but why do you feel like playfulness is important for us as adults? Because there is this seriousness component to being an adult. Like you're not supposed to smile a lot. Especially for men. I'll be honest. You're not supposed to come off. So, but why is it important for us to learn how to be playful or touch that playful side of us?
I think there's a wealth of like joy and innocence and energy and uh, you said the word happiness that comes from there. And I think we get so bogged down in seriousness, we lose sense of that awe and that wonder that comes when you're playfulness, that ability to make mistakes and it be okay, right? Like you make mistakes, you fall over as a kid, and you don't beat yourself up, you don't get hard on yourself, that self-hate. No, you're just like, oh, okay, let me try it again. And I think it's important. Otherwise, what we do is become so rigid and fragile, and it's hard to make mistakes, And I think that's the joy of being playful. If you can just keep trying. You can just, see life more lightheartedly.
I love that. So it's like you're not taking it so serious. Sometimes we take our failure so serious. We go in these depression. Oh, I didn't accomplish this. This is the end of the world. But you're saying it's okay. We can just try again. Like it's no reason
Yeah.
to just yeah. I love that. I
Yeah.
think that's a perception that we all have to adapt in this world. This world throws so many curveballs at you. Might as well have fun with it. That's how I'm perceiving it.
Exactly. No, and
Might
that's it exactly. Because I think it's a little delay on the time, so I apologize if I'm interrupting you at points. But
no problem.
yeah, might as well have fun with it. And also, isn't it much more fun to like do playfulness with others too, right? Um, I think it gives you not only do you not take yourself so seriously, but you also see that everyone is just kind of figuring themselves out at life too. You know what I mean? No one really has all the answers. So I think taking that kind of relaxed and open-minded approach is, and then you feel like you've got partners, you've got play buddies who are following life with you, right? You're like, okay, let's figure this out together. rather than competing with them, or judging them, or it's much more fun.
And I think that's the approach to life. Don't take nothing too serious. Approach it with and you mentioned this. Be open minded. Don't be so hung out on things working out.
No, I was going to say there. I just want to say, there is a space for seriousness. I'm not discounting that. I think it's the, we talk about and like the ability to hold both, and I think anytime we're in one extreme or the other, it's it's being able to hold both the seriousness and the playfulness and knowing the time when both are appropriate, right? So what I just think is that in our day and age, and where it's so busy, the seriousness tends to dominate. But there is a space for it. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Trust me. Some of us are traumatized from our authoritative parents too. Put that in there. They ain't play with us,
Yes,
man.
yes.
We gotta unpack that trauma. Gotta book that session with Lizzie.
I know.
Nah, but listen, thank you so much for coming on Pushing in Peace podcast. I've really enjoyed this discussion, and I know my audience will enjoy it as well. Now, this part of the show is a question that's usually unrelated, um, but I feel like you're going to do exceptionally well with it, just based on everything you've shared with us. And the question is, if you were to author your own personal book right now, what would the title of that book be and why?
Oh, wonderful. I don't know why this word came, but I'm just going to say curiosity. Um, I don't know what the subtitle would be, but the power of maybe being open-minded. I do think curiosity is the most amazing power. It really helps you open up your mind to, perspectives, other people's perspectives, curious about your own perspectives. I think it keeps you engaged with life. It keeps you interested. I think curiosity, not just in like the world outside you, but the world inside you. It's why we continue to want to grow. It's why I don't know. I just think curiosity is this like, and it also means that you always stay kind of humble that you don't know all the answers and that that's okay because you just stay curious. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to have it all right. So something about curiosity for sure.
Lizzie, you said something, and I just felt a light bulb went off in my head. When we were children, you know, uh, we're in our happiest states, most of us, right? And in those happiest states, we tend to ask so many questions. But as adults, I don't see us asking those questions. What happens? And what happens during that? Like, why do we stop? Why do we stop being curious? Because
And
it
that's
seems
it. I
that
mean, that's why I love that you.
sorry, it seems like that curiosity as a child was how we nurtured our happiness. I don't know, but we were pretty happy as children being highly inquisitive. But but as adults, I feel like maybe it's because we feel like we know everything, but really and truly we don't. I don't know. I'll leave that to you to shed light on.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. I wish I had an answer, but I think you are into something about the curiosity of children, the inquisitiveness, the wonder of the world. And I think reclaiming some of the things we lose as adults or that we disconnect from is the pathway to kind of joy and happiness. And, you know, I think we're also in an age where you have to know it all and you actually get, we sometimes get criticized and shamed for being wrong. So we get really tight on what we know and it's hard. I notice a lot of people admitting they're wrong, like, oh, I'm sorry I did this, or I didn't mean that. Like that kind of like ability to just let go and learn something new, and is that flexibility. I'm a yoga teacher, so I had to throw that in there. But you know, that kind of flexible, constantly learning, constantly taking in new things. I think that keeps us limber, and I think even on a healing pathway, that is so important, because when you're going into healing, we're asking you to transform. We're asking you to change different ways of perceiving the world. And I think that ability to stay open to another or new way of doing something is part of that process, is fundamental, to say, I don't know, or what I've been doing so far maybe not hasn't worked that much, so let me try something new. Right?
Exactly. That's why all of us should be in therapy. I'm shameless plug for me. I'm an advocate for mental health. I'm going to throw that. We all should be doing therapy and unpacking and getting in touch with our curiosity and finding out why we behave and how we perceive the world. Lizzie, thank you so much for being a guest on Pushing Your Peace podcast. Do you have any final words before we wrap up the show?
I just want to say thank you, Leo. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for this platform, this opportunity to kind of share these voices with our community here. I think it's the great work, and that's what it's all about: is us collaborating and supporting one another and creating spaces of support and growth. And yeah, I'm just delighted to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Lizzie Foster, a counselor, yoga instructor, and a life enthusiast. Thank you so much for coming on, and I will see you guys next week on Pushing Your Peace podcast. Take care.